Alright, so let's jump straight into it. The 2025 Toyota 4Runner. When I first saw it, I thought the proportions looked very cool. It definitely looks still like a 4Runner, specifically with this angled C-pillar and the glass curving over the roof in the rear end, looking very cool. But there still were a couple of details in the front and in the rear that I like to redesign, and that's exactly what we're going to do in this video. For example, so let's jump in here. Let me show you on these photos, because it's a lot easier than to just talk about it, what it is I want to change. The first thing, we're going to do both the front and the rear end. So the first thing I saw was this. We have this angle, or this sort of, I think you can call it a bumper in the front end. This one right here, very pronounced in the front end, this piece of graphic that we have. I think it looks pretty good to have it like this, because it adds to this rugged feel that we have over the 4Runner. But then when you look up top, it feels like they took this graphic, copy-pasted it, and turned it into the top piece. So we have the same styling, the same bar coming up in the top part of the grill. And this now looks like a wedding cake with different layers of the same thing coming back all over again, creating a pretty static looking front end. But static is fine, because this is, after all, a 4Runner. It's not supposed to be having a fluid, emotional design to it. It's supposed to be a little rugged. I love the hood design up here. You can see these bulges up top looking great. The headlights, I maybe would like to make them a little bigger, but it's not one of the key redesign features that I want to do here. Basically, what I want to do is remove this altogether and have a massive grille in the front end, take an inspiration from this waterfall design that we have in the current 4Runner, which I'm a huge fan of. The current 4Runner has a similar style to this, where it just dips all the way down, just shoots down these two lines, and then you have a graphic feature in the middle that is body color silver. I think that looks a lot better than to have this big, massive panel or bar just going across the entire front end. So that's the front end. Now looking at the rear end here, the first thing that I noticed was that, yes, it still looks like a 4Runner, but the taillights are just very, very small. It's like they just shrank them down, and they look like the eyeballs in the rear here are too small for the overall graphics. So what I want to do here is very, very simple. I want to just take this graphic that is the taillight, extend it down to this line that we have right here. You see this line that cuts into the tailgate here. I want to extend the length of the height of the taillight. Just bring it back down so we have at least an angle, so it looks like it is taller than it is wider. Here it looks as tall as it is wide. Creates also, again, a very static feel, and it feels like it almost feels like a round taillight with some edges on it, because that's how the directional pull is. It pulls in this way, pulls in this way, also pulls here and here. Now I want to make the pull up and down, I want to make that more pronounced, so we have more of a longer taillight in the rear end. Very simple. And then maybe make this, you see this bumper down here is black. I want to have maybe this graphic that we have here cutting down into this area, make this piece, this triangle that we have down here, make that black, and maybe have that be some sort of metal to further improve the off-road capabilities and not being worried about scratching this paint. Same goes for this area down here. I'm probably gonna make this piece black and have it be some sort of metal. So with that said, let's jump into the redesign here and let's see how this is going to turn out. And as we do that, let's see what this new 4Runner is actually all about. So the 5th generation off-road SUV has a successful run of 15 years. The current generation 4Runner still selling like crazy, which is just fantastic. What a model the 4Runner has been for Toyota. Is just one of these models that refuses to die and still continues to be successful. The other car that comes in mind recently is the Dodge Challenger, also very similar lifespan of that car. But the 6th gen new powertrain and upgraded frame make it easy to move on. So you have two new trims as well. You have the Overland Focus Trail Hunter, which I love. It has some of the coolest wheels and tire setup, 33-inch tires, and some very nice bronze looking wheels. You also have the Platinum, which is the top high end Those join the SR5, the TRD Sport, the TRD Off-Road Limited, and the TRD Pro. It's powered by an iForce 2.4 liter Turbo 4 that makes 278 horsepower in the base engine, while others get an iForce Max Hybrid, and this is definitely the one I would go for here, with an added electric motor that ups the total output to 326 horsepower. Not bad at all. So the 4Runner's new front-end styling is not direct Tacoma carryover, but it definitely looks a lot like a Tacoma. I do think the Tacoma looks better because we have more angles in the top part of the grille and not just everything being pointed downwards like two layered cakes, as I talked about. In the Tacoma, the top grille has more of an angle to it. It looks better. And the stance is similar to the Tacoma with a wider track and 3 extra inches of overall body width, and that has to do with all the plastic pieces that go over the wheel arches. It's fitted with Toyo Open Country all-terrain 3 tires on the TRD Pro and the Trail Hunter, and as I said, they're 18-inch the wheel size, and the tires are 33-inch tall. That is the same setup that we have here on this 4Runner that I'm redesigning now, and 33 inches is perfect. I don't want to have 35s on this. I think 35s would look too big for these type of proportions. 33s just fit this car properly. The 4Runner's wheelbase has also been lengthened at the front to gain more body mount clearance. 2.4-inch wheelbase increase from the previous model, and this is now, the wheelbase is in line with the new Land Cruiser and also the new Lexus GX550 and the Lexus LX600, and those are massive SUVs. So it does have a pretty substantial wheelbase. Rear window, and this is what I love about the detail in the rear window, that the edge rolls over the roof in a way that pays homage to its first and second generation 4Runners. Inside, fantastic interior from Toyota with both the Tacoma and the 4Runner. They're essentially identical. You have a clear housing for the gauge cluster. You have a nice 14-inch screen. Now 14 inches, it's a huge screen. Usually very hard to implement beautifully in the rest of the line flow that we have going on in the dash, in the curvature of the gauge cluster housing, but here it looks really good, and that's simply because this is a sort of utilitarian design, very static, very horizontal, architectural on the exterior, and that comes into the interior. So having a square 14-inch screen on the interior, it gets a little bit easier to have that when you have that overall type of design vibe. You have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as well. So the engine here, the base engine is a 2.4 liter iForce, a turbocharged inline 4, 278 horsepower, 317 pound-feet of torque. Still pretty good torque numbers for the base. It's connected to an 8-speed automatic. 0 to 60 for the iForce, the top engine choice here, is 6.8 seconds. And I don't think you need to or want to go any faster on a 4Runner. 6.8 seconds is a great 0 to 60 time for this type of vehicle. The outgoing 4Runner's 4-liter V6, we all know that it wasn't the most fuel-efficient engine, but that produced just 270 horsepower and 278 pound-feet of torque, meaning that the new base engine is a little bit more powerful than the outgoing 4-liter V6. So the iForce 2.4 liter has an electric motor between the 278 horsepower engine and the 8-speed transmission, and I love when car companies does this, because having just a small little electric engine, it helps with so much. The fuel economy, it helps with the torque delivery. You feel the torque a lot sooner when you have that, and you can also, I'm not sure if you can do that in the 4Runner, but also use just electric range for usually about 20 to 40 miles in cars like this. I'm not sure if that's going to be an option for the 4Runner though, but I love hybrids these days. They're very well done, even though it adds a little bit of weight, obviously. It will be standard fitment, this iForce, on the TRD Pro, Trail Hunter, and the full luxury Platinum. The hybrid's battery pack resides under the cargo floor, and that means that you can't have a 3-row 4Runner if you go for the top-of-the-line engine, the iForce Max, because where you fold the 3rd row, that's where the batteries sit now. So that's something that you might want to have to consider if you're considering a 4Runner. If you want the 3rd row, you're going to have to go with the base engine. And the TRD Pro suspension tuning will be geared more towards high-speed desert running, while the Trail Hunters is optimized for overland-style off-road exploration, and that is what I am all about. And I also like the styling of the Trail Hunter better than the TRD Pro. The Trail Hunter has additional skid plates and more robust rock sliders that are bolted directly on the frame, and thankfully it is still a body-on-frame construction, the new 4Runner, so it is a proper off-roader. And it has a built-in air compressor that looked stock in these press cars right here. Fantastic news. Electronic rear differential locker is standard fare for the TRD Off-Road, the TRD Pro, and the Trail Hunter, and you also have disconnecting front anti-roll bar on the TRD Pro and the Trail Hunter. So it looks like this, when it comes out in the fall of 2024, is going to be it has to be a proper off-roader, because that's what the 4Runner is all about. A proper off-roader for a reasonable amount of money. So looking at, let's jump in here and let me walk you through the redesign here. Now the front end looks a lot more flatter now. I have to say that it definitely looks a lot flatter than it does with the bumper that we have here. But I also think it kind of suits this car to have a big grille in the front end that is framed by this chamfer that I have going around it. So here you have before and after. I also added these black pieces down here at the bottom of the fenders here, as you can, or the front end, to just cut off some of this body color and not make it feel like it's stretching all the way down here. It makes the front end looks a little bit too tall, so graphically we can cut it off by making that black. Did the same thing in the rear end. I just wanted to have these black. I'm not sure if that is something that I am 100% with, but if we look at the before and after here, the biggest change is going to be the taillight and the graphics for the taillight, the height of the graphics themselves. And that is my quick little redesign of the 4Runner. I do think, generally speaking, it's a fantastic looking car, and I can't wait to start seeing these out on the streets, probably by the end of this year.